Hi, y'all. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. My name is Kyover Frederick. My pronouns are they, them in English and they and AA in Spanish. And you are here for our second workshop today, How to Run a Know Your Classmates Day. So we are super thrilled to have you here. I'm joined by a number of my colleagues who will introduce themselves as they jump in. But to start with, we are going to kick off with our accessibility Jamboard. So if you've never used a Jamboard before, there's a little uh, screen on the left-hand side, and the icon that looks like a square with some lines in it is the sticky note icon. And so if you have access needs that are not already on the Jamboard, you can create a new sticky note. It's anonymous, and you can write in there anything that you need to for our conversation today to be accessible, and I'll be checking that throughout the conversation, and we'll do our best to meet everything that's on there. And so one of our best practices is that we try to read everything that's in the chat. We try to read everything that's on the slides. Y'all totally do not have to be on camera if you don't want to be. I know we're at the end of a long day for most of you, so definitely feel free to turn your cameras off if you choose. But we love to see your smiling faces. So if you want to be on camera, we would also love to have you. Either way, no pressure. Um, and like I said, I will check that throughout the conversation. And if there's anything added to that that my colleagues need to know about, we'll be transparent about that as well. And then we have another Jamboard for you too that I am going to let my coworker Encore explain. And they are going to use this Jamboard here that I just linked in the chat. Take it away, Encore.
Sure thing, Kyover. Thank you. My name's Ankur. My pronouns are they, them. I'm the manager for National Youth Programs, and I'm here to read one of the National Teen Board belonging boosters that just came out from Avery on the left. Avery, one of our fearless National Teen Board members, uh, gave us this question. What is the oldest piece of clothing you have? So feel free to write in the Jamboard, and I can talk a little bit about where this question comes from. And if you access the curriculum hub where this question is, you can actually see what Avery's answer is, which is about her mother's pants, which connect her to a different fashion style. They're like bell-bottom pants, and also a different country. And Avery has a lovely story about waiting to grow into the pants and imagining her mother growing up um, in Mexico and holding on to this idea. And I think it's really powerful in the classroom when using these boosters to see how students can immediately understand and gravitate toward what are the clothes that have been reused, but also the clothes that have a history and story connected to them. So I'm excited to see, oh, incredible. Hard to determine. I love vintage clothes. Yes, me too. Grandfather's bowling shirt, uh, my dad's basketball jersey, African outfit that was given by my friend in 1994. I mean, immediately I can see all of the detail in these stories and can identify the person you're speaking of and the year it took place and what this person even was interested in. I don't know if your grandfather was interested in bowling, but enough to have the shirt, I'd imagine. I appreciate everyone for sharing.
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to drop the links in the chat again for folks who are just joining us. The first link is for our accessibility Jamboard. And so if you have any access needs that are not already on the Jamboard, you can add those to that, and we'll be checking that periodically throughout the conversation. Again, that is anonymous. And this Jamboard that we're looking at right now is also anonymous. Thank you, Encore. This is I love that so many people have like hand-me-down clothes that are um, so special. There's some really good stories on here already. Um, yeah, lots of these are really fabulous. I love the 2008 Victoria's Secret rhinestone pajamas. Who is that fabulous going to bed? Um, with all the rhinestones still intact. That sounds impossible. Apparently, other people are nicer to their clothes. So many good stories on here. Fabulous. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that. Feel free to keep adding to the Jamboard if you like. We're going to go back to our slideshow. All right. And then because we are a large group today, we're just going to go through the community agreements rather than actually creating them as a community, which is the best practice that we try to use. And so we ask folks to please be fully present, but also take care of yourself, respect confidentiality, practice empathy and non-judgment, use I statements, take space and make space, assume good intent and lean into discomfort with curiosity, take responsibility for impact, and because we are on Zoom, we ask that you please stay muted if you are not speaking. And for those of you who are not familiar with Beyond Differences, we are on a mission to end social isolation among middle school students and create cultures of belonging for everyone. We're working to build a future where all youth are accepted, valued, and included, and all of our differences are celebrated. We do that with national programs, national youth programs, and education programs. And the easiest way to keep up with everything that we are doing at Beyond Differences is to add our calendar of belonging to your own Google Calendar. And I just added the link for that in chat. And for those of you who are not familiar with the inspiration, the reason behind Beyond Differences, Lily Rachel Smith is the daughter of Laura Talmas, one of the co-founders of Beyond Differences. Laura and her husband Ace founded Beyond Differences in 2010 in memory of their daughter Lily, who had experienced social isolation in middle school. This is a picture of Lily and Laura here, and one of my favorite quotes from Lily is, "Do not ever let someone tell you that you can't do something, not even yourself." And so Lily is the inspiration behind Beyond Differences. She's the reason that our work is youth led, youth centered, that we get to do all this fabulous stuff that is by youth for youth. So I want to make sure you get to see her smiling face. And I am going to pass it over to Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. I'm the Director of National Programs at Beyond Differences. My pronouns are she, her. And what I really hope that you feel comfortable walking away from are these three things out of this workshop. The first one is that you are empowered to support your students on how to lead a Know Your Classmates Day. We hope that you deepen your understanding of how our lessons for KYC can activate belonging in your class. And our hope is that you can help students learn to strengthen connections with each other by teaching them how to ask great questions and using storytelling through the activities of Know Your Classmates. Okay. Is it just, oh yeah, it is just me. It was zoomed out or in a little bit. Okay. And so what is Know Your Classmates Day if you have not celebrated it before? And how we define it is a day where it's a low stakes event for students to meet new friends. And this year, what we have planned is a fun connection catcher activity designed by our National Teen Board. It is a way to redefine the back to school experience that has normally been associated with feelings of dread or nervousness. And we hope that it is a time for excitement. And we do specialize specifically in work for students in 5th to 8th grades. And it's also a fun way to break down barriers to connection and acknowledge that our differences are not hindrances, but opportunities. And at Beyond Differences, we celebrate on Friday, October 11th. It's the second Friday of October, but you are more than welcome to celebrate it any time that fits your school schedule.
And you can scan the QR code or click the link that I dropped in the chat to register for Know Your Classmates Day if you are not already signed up.
So to start us off, I want to share this awesome video. So something that we did differently this year was the feedback we received when educators and students tested our curriculum is that students felt most connected to lessons where there was a good role model or there was a scenario to discuss. And we figured, why not go to the source to figure out what we can do more of for our lessons? So true to our program, every lesson starts with hearing from a student first, and students get to hear from the lived experiences of our National Teen Board members. Being that this year's KYC theme is Tell Your Story, Know Your Classmates, we start off lesson 1 with this video of National Teen Board Cuba. And as you watch, I want you to think about, and I'm going to put this in the chat, what did you learn about him? And is there anything he said that you felt connected to or that you feel your students would really resonate with? So I'm going to have Frederick, if you could kindly please play that.
Hi, my name is Kuba, and this is how I move beyond differences. So to describe the world I come from is often lying about how I'm from San Francisco. I'm actually from Daly City, which is just on the border. My mom immigrated there when she was just 3 years old. So I'm the son of an immigrant. I'm Salvadoran and Black. My dad's from Berkeley. And just growing up, unfortunately, like, I didn't really know my dad's side as much, so I mainly grew up with my Latino side. And, you know, what was on the stove was always like pupusas, like chicken pozole and stuff like that. And taking my heritage in stride and accepting the fact that I'm the best of both worlds, because oftentimes as I was like coming up and growing up, like I had to figure out how to navigate that, being told that I'm not Latino enough or being told I'm not Black enough, and like having to navigate those spaces that wouldn't really accept me. I'm one of the few people, I'm part of the generation that my freshman year was online. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize how weird that is, because like freshman year for me was like, and for a lot of people in general in high school, is like the prime time to like start meeting people and start creating those connections, and I just didn't have that. So then it was even tougher when we went to hybrid and I was trying to meet people, but then I already found people who like knew each other from like Instagram and like Discord and all this other social media stuff. So it just always felt like I was playing catch up, and that's sort of like how I've been dealing with like social isolation. Even though I couldn't find community, as much community as I wanted to in my own grade or my own age group, I was still able to find it in different ways. And that helped a lot. And then eventually when like, you know, they kind of started leaving, that's when I like came back and I was like, okay, I'm ready to talk to people who are like more in my age range or more in my grade. So that's definitely how I fought against it. And also just like always being honest with the people around me and the people who I'm like getting support from. And I feel like when you isolate a lot, you become very self-aware, and that's like kind of a skill I've gained as I've grown up. And like because of that self-awareness, I was like, oh, I'm kind of like projecting onto certain people as I'm like trying to like get out of my shell. So that's when I started like seeing a therapist. She gave me all these like techniques to help me be myself around people who I like care about and like want to give attention to. Like I started writing and journaling, so I wasn't just always holding everything inside.
Okay, so that was Cuba. And as I mentioned, we would love if you, since this is a pretty small group, we would love if you want to unmute, or you can type in the chat and your response to one of these several prompts. What did you learn about Cuba? Or is there anything that you felt connected to or that you feel like your students would connect to watching this video? Give you a few seconds to process, or if you're ready to unmute, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, you were muted at the end there, Alyssa.
I said I see some people typing, so I'm going to give some more time.
Don't be shy, y'all. Brian says, connecting with other students who are as diverse as they are, but in different ways. Robin says, I think there are definitely some of my students who could identify with not being one or the other race.
Okay, thanks for sharing those thoughts, and I'll be on the lookout for any more reflections. Oh, ooh, there's a few more. Okay. I always appreciate the real version of How to Live in Two Worlds. He said he wasn't Black enough or Latino enough. This is helpful to me to hear. Also, I love that he was using journaling to respond and cope. Thanks, Bridget. And Carrie, love that he shared how he learned to cope during his self-discovery. And it is so powerful just to hear, as a young person, to hear how one person took this experience with social isolation and reframed it and took agency to ask for help. So imagine if your students were to hear that, what kind of impact that would be felt, and knowing that there is a way out of social isolation. So thank you all for sharing your reflections.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that Kuba's so self-aware, and I think that it's such a beautiful example of healthy masculinity, saying, I was projecting, I was self-isolating, so I started seeing a therapist. I started using the resources and the tools around me. And I think like taking that stigma away from, that we have about mental health is super helpful too.
Thank you. And I wanted to share, in addition to every lesson now starting with an appearance from a teen board member, what else is new? So thanks in part to our participants in our educator review panel last year, we did decide to make some differentiated lessons for the 5th and 6th grade levels and 7th and 8th grade. So we have like 2 grade level bands to choose from. And what you'll notice is between the difference between the two is we tended to provide the younger grade levels with sentence starters to support them in their processing and reflective skills. And for the 7th and 8th grade, our discussion questions ended up being more nuanced and open-ended so that the older grade levels have practice in having these difficult conversations and hearing from each other what they would do in scenarios, because that is most likely what's going to come up from them after they leave middle school. Our lessons are intended to be taught in the weeks leading up to your KYC Day celebration so that students have a background on what the day is all about, the intention behind it, and help them become comfortable opening up to others. So if they see someone like Kuba talking about themselves, they now have an example of how they can talk about themselves authentically. You will also find there's a student leader guide in the form of a comic strip and checklist to help students organize a day so they're not as super reliant on you as adults to cultivate belonging. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to take a quick moment to break down when you teach a BD lesson, what should you expect? As I mentioned, your opening will be an example of modeling from a teen board member of how they reflect or how they process a difficult situation. And the meat or the vegetables or potatoes of the lesson is the exploration. So that takes up about 15 to 20 minutes, and it could be a scenario-based or perspective-taking activity. So for example, in lesson 2, for the 7th and 8th grade, we give a handful of scenarios and asking students to reflect on what would you do in this case? And they get a chance to talk to other people and share out what are some actions they can take so that someone doesn't feel socially isolated. And lastly, we want all of our lessons to be actionable. And so we do end with a reflection or connection or call to action. Other lesson features you can expect. We are aware of the sensitive nature of some of the scenarios. So we do build in teaching tips. So for example, make sure that you fully read the scenarios and decide which ones you feel the most comfortable teaching. Do you have some talking points prepared for some of them? And if you have students who are English language learners, you want to consider, can I provide them a translation? We do have them available in Spanish. In addition, there are some lessons where there's differentiation tips. So for example, we do review the idea of agency as it applies to helping others for 7th and 8th grade. But if your 7th and 8th graders still aren't there yet, it may be they need to process, what does agency look like when I take action for myself first before I can help others? And lastly, a lot of teachers ask us, what else can I do to deepen the impact of this lesson? There are extension activities for each one. All of these resources are available through our Google Drive, which you can easily access on our Curriculum Hub page once you register. On the left here, I do want to make a special plug for our Youth Amplified section, which are a series of different units that may contain art or history lessons related to these communities that struggle with social isolation, as a way to empower and raise awareness of how they may struggle with social isolation and how to help them overcome it. So that's a great segue into what's next. We do co-design with our students. And so I'm going to pass it over to Sally, who will tell you about the activity for KYC Day this year and introduce you to some special folks.
Hi there, I'm Sally Matsuishi. I'm the, who am I? I'm the Director of National Youth Programs. I'm so excited to be here. So think back into your childhood. You probably remember doing those little cootie catcher games that are made out of folded pieces of paper. And there were little questions like, what's your favorite color or whatever on them. So what we have done with them is we have taken this tried and true fun little thing. And then I've worked with the national team board to come up with those juicier questions, the questions that go beyond what's your favorite color, and actually get conversations going and actually celebrate a different range of authentic identities and get people connected quickly. So it all takes place and can be done with anything that you could find in your standard classroom. But the secret sauce is actually the questions that the national team board has created to get the party started. So can I have the next slide? I brought with me two national team board members who helped make this curriculum. Inga and Pax are here with us today. And so Inga and Pax, if you could, I'll start with Inga first. If you can introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and tell me what drew you to Beyond Differences in working in this way.
Hi everyone, my name's Inga. I'm from New York and I started Beyond Differences in 9th grade after participating in a program in elementary school. And then when I learned about the National Team Board, I thought it was a great way for me to get involved. And I currently teach lessons about empathy and belonging from the Beyond Differences curriculum to students in my community.
And Pax, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what drew you to Beyond Differences?
Yeah, hi. I'm Pax Nakahara. I'm from San Francisco and I'm current senior. And during the pandemic, I remember my mom was having a conversation with my papa, my grandma, and she did not want my grandma going outside because she was worried about her safety. And that really scared me during the time. But I later realized that a lot of Asian kids and Asian students across the country felt that same way. So I felt this responsibility and this need to help create safe spaces for them to share and normalize these fears, and help them process these fears.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank you, Pax. I wish I had known you when I was in middle school. Then what I want to talk about now, next slide, with the help of Pax and Inga, is why we celebrate. These little doodads, they're so cute, by the way, are really quick ways in which you connect different people. So, but we wanted to take it that one step further, and to celebrate individual identities and to give all kinds of space for people of different neuro presentations, people from different languages, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and people from different races to all feel seen and heard and represented in their classrooms in an early in the school year. So I wanted to go to the next slide. So we created these questions, and here are some questions that we really love that have been really terrific. What is your secret superpower? What is something you've always wanted to tell someone? What song reminds you of your family? So what you notice is these are not your standard, like, what sport do you play? What color do you like? These are really going into those further reaches of kids' experiences, and it allows them to really connect with one another. So I wanted to go out to Inga first to ask you why these questions? Why do you think these questions will have an impact?
So I've seen through my work in teaching the Beyond Differences curriculum to students that the in-depth questions are the ones that really get through the students and create the most meaningful and impactful conversations. Usually when kids are nervous and they don't feel like they belong, they're hesitant to reveal how they might be different from other students, which is why usually they answer with generic responses like, I have one dog or I play sports. But when you create a safe space and you treat differences like something that makes kids special, then they begin to open up. And usually after one kid gives a more honest response, then the discussion opens up. And it's also these questions are also important as a white teacher in a classroom of students of color because they make the kids feel safe to talk about things that make them different in their different cultures.
Thank you so much, Inga. Pax, what do you think?
Yeah, so I love these specific questions because they have this like special ability to create like inclusive and safe spaces during like difficult times. Like for example, like a couple days after the Monterey Park shooting, Beyond Difference and I went down to Chinatown and we asked a lot of kids what they thought they could do to help stop AAPI hate, and a lot of responses we got were I think people just need to get to know us better. And that's what these questions do. These questions help like humanize students and humanize their field and help them help their classroom to understand them better.
Thank you, Pax. That day was incredible. I would happen to be there with Pax on that day. And everybody was a little hesitant. Everybody was a little bit afraid because it was just a few days after a mass shooting in the Asian American community. But kids lined up in the rain to do this activity with Pax and the other young people he had brought out to do this activity. And they were talking about it and processing those feelings and also seeing one another. And it was an incredibly powerful time. And I'd like to also thank Inga for that, the insight into being a white teacher and working with students of color and how she's able to use these questions to not only help children connect with one another, but also to enable her to connect with them. Can I have the next slide? So I want to talk about tips and tricks of how to do these. You can make them in different languages. We do have available in the curriculum hub in the question bank. We have them all translated into Spanish. And it's not that they are just translated into Spanish, but they were also written by Latinx people, Latinx young people. We also encourage you to play the connection catcher with your students. If you model that your secret superpower, like in my case, is that I was a translator for my family, or that I'm really good at navigating food bank lines. If I open that up and make that safe to talk about, you'll see that your children will bloom around you. And you can really see the deep impact of this. A couple other tips and tricks I would just lay out there that are practical. Make sure you have more black pens than other pens. Kids like to write the questions in black pens, and otherwise you'll have a lot of scrambling for black pens. The other thing is when you get the question bank, one of the fun things that I have done is I've blown up the questions, I cut them out into strips and I throw them onto tables, and kids can sort of mix them around and choose different questions that they want to put in their connection catchers. And then you could also have the discussion of why did you choose these questions, or why were these questions resonate with you. Another thing is I have this bowl that I got off Facebook Marketplace. And it is pretty big. It's like bigger than a salad bowl. And I will throw a bunch of the connection. Kids make them, and then I throw them in the bowl, and people come up and they pull one out. And then and pulling that connection catcher out, they found the person who made it, and then you pair new people together. And you can keep doing this and pairing new people and having people share them out together. It's incredibly quick and fun. The next slide, please. Before I go here, I have one last question for Pax and Inga. What do you hope the impact of this activity will be?
Well, I've actually had the opportunity to see the impact of teaching these lessons, and I've noticed how these questions can open the door for students to talk about personal and sometimes challenging memories. I remember one of the first times that I taught one of these lessons at my local community center. One girl mentioned that she had just gone to visit her grandma in Lima, and then all the other kids started talking about where their grandparents were from. And even though not everything they said was like super positive. They were all excited to have things in common and things to add to the discussion. And this was one of my favorite memories of teaching Beyond Differences, and I think it's really telling of the impact that it has on students.
That's incredible. I love when students are able to share not just happy things, but also the challenges, because then you know you've created a safe space, which you've brilliantly done, Inga, but also that that you were able to then share in the challenges, and that students are not alone in those places. Another really great way that I can always tell that a project went well, and in particular with this, is what you will find is that kids start making them at lunch, and kids will start using them other places. I wanted to ask Pax, what do you hope the impact of this will be?
Yeah, so I hope the impact will be that it will create safe spaces that where students can not share, not only just like share more about themselves, but continue to share more about themselves, continue to make these connections with their like new friends, and continue to have their classmates know them better.
Yeah, that's a wonderful and beautiful thought. Thank you, Pax. A couple last notes of what I've discovered from doing this is if you have students on the autism spectrum or people that are neurodivergent, there are many different ways for them to engage this, especially because with some of my autistic students that don't like to make eye contact, it allows them to do something while not looking directly at somebody. It also gives them a way to be able to create something. Some students that come from other countries really knew this or didn't know it at all, and it was completely gave a teaching moment for some students to teach other newcomer students how to create these connection catchers. There's all these entrance points. You can also do these questions in a form of two kids came up with that I watched them do it in like a Pictionary form where they asked the questions and they drew the answers. And so it is really inclusive of a lot of different ways of learning, and it has that tactile, it has a sound when it's happening. It has you can engage it in different languages. I did it I don't speak Cantonese, but I had somebody help me do the whole lesson in Cantonese the other day. And there's just ways to be in the moment with students that is kind of has a lot of joy to it. So that is my best tips and tricks. Thank you, Inga and Pax. You can stick around and answer questions. Otherwise, you can also go and do your homework. But I really appreciate all the insights that you gave to us in this moment, and I will hand it over to do the next few slides.
Thank you, Sally. And thank you, Pax and Inga, so much. We always love having you here. I did want to open it up and toss it to Encore and or Alyssa if y'all have tips and tricks that you want to share with the connection catchers as well.
I can say really quickly that the question bank is a very helpful resource to allow students to really deepen what they're creating. And the way I like to use it, because I really try to make sure that students can engage with it and not feel shame for not writing the questions themselves, is that I like to cut up the questions and give them to students. And sometimes after I am going around and facilitating and seeing what they're writing, I'll pick out questions and see if they're interested in using it or curious about what they think about it. If I think that they would like the question from the question bank. And I really love a lot of those National Teen Board questions. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that part of the lesson.
And my additional 2 cents comes from me being a former student council activities director. And if we're thinking about running a KYC day school-wide, a great suggestion is, if you have the capacity to at your school, try to organize by like advisory or by classroom, in which they are given the teachers are given the links to the lesson and the question banks, and have the students prepare their connection catcher in the days leading up to KYC day, and then they can premiere and show off their actual connection catchers on the day of. So that way you're just not scrambling, and your students are actually having enough time to meet each other. That is the whole intention of this activity. And just having the materials maybe laid out on a table, maybe you can have it ready at lunchtime if students want to come a few days before KYC day to create theirs. That's a really good way so that you as an educator running this activity aren't as stressed. Yeah, that's it for me.
Thanks,
can
y'all.
You can have student leadership too. If there are student leaders that are putting on the Know Your Classmates Day that can help you pre-make the connection catchers, they go fairly quickly. And I've had students who help me pre-make them before an event.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say, I I'm not super artsy. I've never made a successful like paper cutout snowflake in my life. They all come out square. And so I was a little bit scared of the idea of like making a connection catcher, but Alyssa found a great video that's included in the lesson plan that actually like lays out like how to actually do the cutting and folding and the catching. And I only had to watch it twice and I was like, okay, I can do this. And so if you are afraid of how do you actually fold this thing, because when I was a kid, I always had someone else fold them for me. Like there's a full, like really lovely, easy tutorial on it. Alyssa also has in the lesson plans for this a really beautiful, so in addition to the question bank, there's also like a piece of the lesson that helps your students figure out how to ask the kinds of questions that they want to ask and how to ask different kinds of questions. And so one of them is like poetic questions, like would you rather be a sunrise or a sunset and why? Which I think is just like so cute. And I want to know everyone's answer. And then the other thing that is in the lesson that we haven't touched on is the fact that you can do this, the actual like question, or not the actual questions, but the initial questiony piece with colors or stickers or images on the outside so that if you have students who like the numbers are difficult for them, or if you want to do it in other languages, if you just have, this side's just purple and this side's just green, then you can do that in any language for the outside of it. And so you can make it multilingual as you're using it too. So there's a lot of really fun tips that Alyssa and her team put together. All right. And if y'all are not already a member of our free professional development learning community, we strongly encourage you to join us. It is free, it is virtual, it is amazing. You can connect with educators from across the globe. We have folks literally from all over the world who are working in social emotional learning spaces in the professional development learning community. You can also catch replays from all of our previous professional development. We record these sessions and those videos and their slideshows are all in there. It's also an archive for past year's curricula. So if you do all 3 of this year's Know Your Classmates lessons and your students are hungry for more, you can go in and see past year's lesson plans and expand on these lessons pretty significantly. There's quite a lot of stuff in there. And for our upcoming professional development, you can see all of us again very soon. On October 1st, I'll be hosting Connection and Communication, a Language, Justice, and Accessibility Primer. On October 8th, Sally is hosting Building Belonging with and for Low-Income Students. And on November 5th, Alyssa is going to be co-hosting Redesigning Educational Spaces for Belonging, Instructional Strategies with our accessibility consultant, Erin Robbins. And if you are in the learning community, you'll have all of those listed there, all the links for the Zooms ready to go. And finally, we would love and appreciate your feedback. It is anonymous, and we do read all of them. And you can scan this QR code, or I will drop the link in the chat as well. So that's there. If you fill out a survey, we greatly appreciate it if you do. If you could just note that this is workshop number 2, because we did have another workshop earlier today, that would really help us differentiate which one we came to. Because they were the same day, the same title, just different times. That would be helpful for us. And then lastly, we are super excited to announce that Beyond Differences has merged with Sandy Hook Promise. We are really excited for this development. It's going to take a while for everything to integrate and be connected, but we've got our shiny new email addresses here. You can keep in touch with us at any of these. You can reach out to Alyssa or Sally or myself, and I'll drop those in the chat as well. But we are really, really excited to be partnering with Sandy Hook for the long haul. And this week kicks off their Start with Hello week, and I'll drop a link in the chat for that if you would like to participate with Sandy Hook Promise's premier back to school event. We are really, really excited about this. So thank you all so much for your time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of your beautiful faces. And Beyond Differences staff and I see Inga and Pax are still here, so we're going to stick around for a couple minutes. If y'all have any questions, we are happy to answer those for you. You can pop them in chat or you can come off mute. Or you're free to go. You don't have to stick around. You don't have to have questions. But if you do have questions, we encourage them.
Thanks for coming.
All right. Thanks, Pax.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Carrie. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Brian, you have questions? All right. Thanks so much, y'all. We super appreciate it. And we hope you have a wonderful New Year's Classmates Day.